Hey, what's up, ladies? Welcome to another episode of the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. And I am here today with the beautiful Amber Lilyestrum. And I am so excited to speak to her. I know I start all of my podcasts that way because I'm always excited to speak to these beautiful, amazing women. It is so selfish of me. I've already admitted that my platform, my podcast, is my selfish way to be able to make all of these amazing friends. Welcome to Revitalized Womanhood, Amber.
Yay, I'm so excited to be here, Gina. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I have a list of accolades here for you. A list as long as my arm that I could just mentor, branding expert, author, speaker. You've written books, which I'm super excited to learn about those. You've worked with the Tony Robbins and what was that other gentleman's name? Mastermind. Oh, here I am messing it up.
Dean Graziosi. Yep.
Yes, Graziosi. All of these things. But I just found a post in your Instagram feed that was one of the just spoke to my heart, and one of your best accolades is, I bet you would say, being a mother to these two beautiful human beings right here, right?
Doubt. That's it.
I love that. Well, is there anything else you would like to, how else would you introduce yourself to my listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a mom just figuring it out like you guys. And I just happen to have one of those hearts and minds that never stops and is here to just get to the root of it all and to be as expressed as I possibly can be while I'm living in this body. And so that's what it's about for me, each day is just really, really being here and paying attention, because there's so much to see and learn and be inspired by.
Isn't that heavy when you finally realize that, when the thought of that kicks in, that we are finite, right? And the thought of that, well, I mean, who you talk to, but we are finite here on this earth and the life that we're living. And that's heavy because, like you said, there are so many things I want to do, so many things I want to see. There's so many things I want my children to do and see. And this is actually going to come back up in our conversation because I have a little bit of an advantage over you. I've been cyber stalking you and I fell into the rabbit hole of your podcast episodes. I really like to flip back and just kind of see where the universe puts me with my guests in their episodes. And it's honestly, to date, such a beautiful thing, because I don't know if it's the law of magnetism or manifestation, and it just happens to be what's in my heart, but it always ends up being what needs to be spoken about, what needs to be brought up. So I'm really excited to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, would you tell us about your journey into motherhood for these human beings? Because I know you've got a little highlight bubble in your Instagram that's a kind of a special journey for one of your babes.
Yeah. I mean, end to end, I think always knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a mom. And it was my first dream. It was my first knowing of myself, as a young person. It was like, I want to do big things, but motherhood is going to be the most important part of my life. It's like, I don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. And then, I struggled with infertility, and it's kind of, I had endometriosis happening for me in my 20s. And, when I was married to my husband and then realizing like, okay, we want to try to get pregnant. And also just like kind of having a little sense that it might not be the easiest path. My doctor at the time, I was working with a reproductive endocrinologist for my endometriosis. And then I had gone off of the medication I was on. I was on Lupron for a long time because of the intensity of what my periods were doing. And so it took almost a year and a half for my period to return. And when it did, they were like, green means go. And I remember just being like, wait, like best laid plans. We weren't even going to think about this till next year. And it was like the fall of the year we had gotten married, the following year. So we got married in 2011. It was 2012. And, they brought us through the process, like right out of the gate. We did a first cycle of IUI and we conceived our daughter, Annika. And in my birthing process with Ani, I had a near-death experience. I stopped breathing on the operating room table. And it was this catalyst moment in my life of knowing that there are a lot of things I wanted to be doing in my life that I wasn't in my career specifically, and like the ways I was meant to be used here in this lifetime. And this near-death experience was like shaking all the lemons, the fruit, the magic out of the tree. And it was like this wake-up call of you're not doing it and you know what it is, and you've now have your baby here who's like the spotlight, like the mirror extraordinaire of showing you what actually matters in life. And so I was on my maternity leave, and I went back to work in December. She was born in August 2013. Went back to work and just quickly realized like there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to stay in my career. I'd been in this career for 10 years. I was super successful. I was like one of the top sport marketing professionals in the US. And I just knew I had to figure it out. And so 9 months after Ani was born, I launched my business, my coaching company, and quit my job, like basically with one client, and left my 10-year career, and was home. And I was like, never had I been happier in my life, because what I realized was I just given myself the gift of all of my time back and everything that I wanted in my life, and I was living it. And listen, it was hard. It was like imposter syndrome extraordinaire. I just went from here to my coach at the time said, you're going to go from being a somebody to a nobody. And she was right. I had 7 subscribers, myself 4 times, my mom, my husband, and my best friend. And I had to build this business like from literal scratch while, holding my baby on my hip and doing the nap time hustle. But there's no greater motivation, to live out my dream and to live my motherhood dream like together. And so I've been doing that. She's 10 now. So fast forward the time of this conversation, she's 10. And in those years after she was born, I was really focused on developing the business. We retired Ben from his police career and moved into our dream house on this lake, and like did a lot of really big things we wanted to do. But the whole time we were trying to conceive. Like we weren't not trying to conceive. Let's just put it that way. And being somebody who had endometriosis, I was delighted because my period came back and I was like, oh, I have a normal cycle for the first time in my life. Like, this is amazing. Like, from pregnancy, this happened. And that does sometimes. And I just thought, man, we should, like, maybe we'll be able to get pregnant. And in 2019, I realized, like, okay, we were not getting pregnant. And I'd had a couple little, what might have been miscarriages. I'm not sure, but, it kind of had that sense. And I just felt like this dream of our second child is not going anywhere, and we need to get some support. So we went back to my doctor, and he was basically like, you're not a candidate for IVF. And I remember just feeling like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean I'm not a candidate for IVF? Like, I feel like I've been doing everything right. Like, am I broken? Like, what's wrong? And, he said, well, there's a chance if you, work on some of these things that maybe we could get your levels to where they need to be. And so I just like, that's all I needed was like, I just need this much, and I'm going to go do that. So I went to my naturopath and we worked on it and we got things shifted. And I went back like probably 6 months later, and he was like, okay, let's go. Like, let's try. And he could tell, like, if there was this much of a chance, I wanted to try. And so in January of 2021, we did our first cycle and we didn't conceive. We had like very minimal chances of conceiving, but it's like, miracles are real. And so then they said, okay, we're going to just go right into another cycle. And so we did that. And it really pushed my body like to the limits, like right up to the line. I remember, when the stim medication, all these things were happening, I remember the nurse saying to me, like, be careful going up and down the stairs. Like, do not jump, like, do not move around a lot because of like the risk of torsion. And I just remember thinking, like, don't worry, I won't. I felt terrible. I was just, my body was like all the things, such extremes. And we tried, and I did conceive. And it's wild because I remember the book, my very first poetry book, Paddle Home, the copies that I was going to sign arrived. My first box of my poetry book, like my dream book. And then I have these like 2 pregnancy tests that say pregnant. Like, this only the second time in my life that I've ever seen a positive pregnancy test, like sitting on my book. And I'm like, this can't be real. Like, I'll never forget that day. It was just like, this can't be real. And I lived in the joy of it for like, a couple days until I went and got the blood work, and they were like, it's not where it needs to be. And then it just got really bad from there. It just got really heavy and dark from there. And ultimately I did lose the pregnancy, and it was very short-lived. It wasn't fully viable, but it was to me, you know, and
Yeah.
it was just like, it was our baby. And, and I was just broken. I was broken. Like I couldn't function. I did my work. It was like my work was my salvation because I could just come in here and just help someone. And then I didn't have to think about what was happening for me. And then I would go back and have my experience, and my body was just so beat up and inflamed and heavy, and just, I didn't feel like myself, but I was like, I just had to go so slow. And so that was in about March, like April of 2021. And then at the end of May, I remember this one morning, it was like 5 a.m, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm scrolling on Instagram just by myself downstairs. Everybody else is sleeping. And I find this profile of this woman. I don't know how I found her, but she was an influencer type person, but she had adopted a baby with this consultancy. She adopted her son. And I kind of just went through the rabbit hole, and I was like clicking all through, and I found this consultancy and these women, and one was a birth mom and one was an adoptive mom, and they built this business, and I just like had such a heart for what they created. And I reached out and I filled out the application. So my husband woke up and I was like, I just did this thing, and we're going to have a call, and we're just going to like see. Cause I could just like weep telling that part. Cause it was like what my heart felt like, you know, it was like, this dream isn't going anywhere. But I knew that my fertility was complete, and I was 39. And I knew that I couldn't ask any more of my body. You know, I had been dealing with this for so long, and I had been blaming my body, and it was like, I can't live this story of infertility anymore, especially because I have a child. Like I can't, it's too painful. I can't do this because I am a mother, but I know that there's another baby. Like my motherhood felt incomplete. Like I knew there was another child to be part of our family. I knew my daughter was supposed to be a big sister, and I just felt it. And so, you know, we were like weak, like truly, like we were weak, you know, at that point, but we got on the phone and we spoke with Brittany, and, you know, she was just like an earth angel. And, you know, she sent us all the information, and we're like, well, we're going to just like try, we're going to learn, we're going to see what this is about. And like, we were like, oh, now we're going to like prepare our hearts for the adoption journey, which is its own whole universe. Right. And we just really took our time. We didn't rush. We weren't like, let's get that, you know, it took us all the way until basically like the end of November. That was like, we'll say June to the end of November, to like get the home study and go through all the process. And we just like really took our time. We were going to be super thoughtful to go through all the educational stuff, to watch the classes, to learn as much as we could. And all the while, we had this gift of like getting to see cases that were coming through that we couldn't apply for, but that we could just like have conversations about. And it was such a beautiful thing in our marriage to really like meet each other and meet our hearts in different ways, and expand our hearts outward to these women and these babies and these birth moms and birth fathers, and, you know, just like really grow. And fast forward to March of 2022, we were in Florida. I was hosting a retreat for my mastermind group, and it was a super transcendent experience. And I truly like burned the story of infertility, and I released it, and we did this very powerful ritual, and all these signs were coming through. And I told Ben, you know, sort of at the turn of the calendar, I think that what we have to do, honey, is just make a decision to believe in our baby. And we just don't have to know anything else, but we just have to believe in our baby and just trust, you know, God, the universe is going to handle everything else. It's not our job. We don't have to take responsibility for what's not ours. And I remember this one day I was actually doing like a VIP session with a client. We were walking on the beach, and that's how we did it. We just walked for like hours, just coaching and talking on the beach. And I had said a prayer to send me a sign at some point. And as we were walking, I found this tiny baby sand dollar, and I knew in an instant. I was like, this is our sign. And I wept, you know, and I just held in my hand like, God, just for our baby, like our baby's coming. Woo! And so I went back to the house we were staying at, and I just put my hand out to my husband, and he started crying. We're like, our baby's coming. And so, you know, we went home. We flew home to New Hampshire on that Saturday. And I remember Sunday, March 13th, I went, and it's like so special. I went and bought all the groceries and like did all the life things. And that afternoon, Kristen called me from the consultancy, which she never calls. And she called and she was like, go look at your computer right now. You need to see this case. And I looked at this case, and it was a birth mom who was, the baby was born. The baby was there in Florida, and she was looking for an adoptive mom who looked similar to her. She really wanted that resemblance to be strong. And we did kind of look alike a little bit, you know? And so I had to like send pictures of myself, and I wrote her this letter, and I just wept sitting at the counter, like writing this letter to her. The part that if your eyes are not dry right now, they're really going to be like just a flood in a moment. But the end of the letter, the birth mom actually chose to name the baby, which doesn't always happen, but she did. And in the letter, I told her that the name that she had chosen was our boy name when our daughter was born. And she named the baby Alexander. And our boy name was Alexander. Just, you can't make it up, you know, you cannot make this up. And Ben and I knew, it's just like, we felt it, we felt him, we like just had a knowing. And his birth father was part of the story, and he's actually from New England and from like this area where we live, and he grew up coming to New Hampshire, and he just saw the photos in our book and was like, I want Alex to grow up like that. Like, I want him to have that. And so we got a phone call the next day at like 4 p.m, and we spoke to the birth parents, and they chose us, and they were like, you know, the agency's like, get on a plane. And so we had like 8 hours basically to like find everything we could, grab our car seat that we had, you know, and get on the plane and get there. And, you know, fast forward, it was exactly 1 week, almost to the hour of when I found that sand dollar. I was holding him in my arms.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So he turns 2, like the timing of us talking. Right now, he's turning 2 on March 13th, in the next few days. And yeah, and the really crazy part is that, you know, our birth mom wanted a adoptive mom that resembled her, but my husband actually looks like he could be her brother. And so Alex looks just like my husband. Like, he literally looks like my husband's son. Like, they're like twins. And it's just the most miraculous, amazing thing. And it's just truly like the story, Alex's story, my daughter's story. I mean, both my kids fundamentally changed me, like on a cellular, spiritual level. Motherhood has completely changed me, but it's also brought me home to the truth of myself and what I've, you know, always known. It's just been the greatest gift of my life. And so these 2 kids are literally my world, and, you know, my family is everything. And I was just saying to my husband, you know, earlier today, you're going to laugh at this. I was at the car dealership because I am trading in my Mercedes for a minivan. And I'm literally was laughing at my best friend. I'm like, I'm getting a car that looks like an orthopedic shoe. And the reality is because I'm in my family era, you know, I'm in this era, like, it's such a privilege, to be like here. So, woo, here we are with our tears, but it's just the truth.
Oh my gosh.
That's my motherhood story.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I actually posted today, a quote that it's so perfect. And it says, I seldom end up where I wanted to go, but almost always end up where I need to be. That's Douglas Adams. And it just got me thinking of, especially with it being Women's History Month, right? Women's History Month. And I took it one step further for my community and named it The Women Who Tell Our Stories. And more putting the light on them, like, what is the story you're telling, and what is the legacy you're leaving, which we'll get back to that. That was one of those things when I was listening to your podcast. I'm like, what? This is so weird. We're aligning. But it's like, I love that song. I went down the path of God Bless the Broken Roads, because we have no idea, especially when we're in the thick of it, right? When we're in the thick of it and it is so heavy and it feels so impossible. Everything just feels like, and even when you're in on an upward trajectory, I think those kinds of things happen. I think it's like, oh, you finally see some light, but whatever it is in the universe wants to try to keep pushing you down and pushing you down. But it's those broken roads that get you to where you're supposed to be. And it's never, is it ever really where you expected to be? I mean, I hope not, because what would be the fun of that? But anyway, so I don't know if it's inappropriate to ask you this, but it was on my heart that I really wanted to have this conversation with you because, like I said, I already feel like we're besties having coffee. But my husband and I, my heart is so heavy today, like so heavy, because we are talking about, do we have our fourth baby? Do we, because we've got 12 and 9 and then 3. So we have already done the gap thing. We went and traveled the world with our 2. And then we said, hey, let's go home and get pregnant. So we've got the 6-year gap. Yeah. And then COVID hit and it was whatever, but he's amazing. We love him. Could not be happier. And I kind of have always had this like, well, he needs a buddy, right? I've always, my kind of joke is, who's he going to sit with at Disneyland? Like, someone always has to ride alone. We need evens. So the minivan thing is not lost on me. I love it. Yeah. I think it's great. Everyone thinks I'm going to be the one like pimping out my minivan, like rolling down the,
totally.
Like, with my rims.
Let's be real. I did get the like nicest one that in the lot. I said to the guys, like, I don't care. Just bring the best one you have. And I would like to see that. And then I got it. I was like, this is amazing. I can like.
They're amazing. They're so
much
good.
better for my family and for my children. Like we're doing this.
We're doing this. I'm like, I can put ski racks. I don't even ski, but they look cool. Like I'm going to do the thing. Like,
yeah, you totally can.
But so today we got into it this morning and I says, I'm so conflicted. I am so conflicted. So now we're going to be coming up on, and I'm going to be 42. I'm not young and he's not young. And so we're coming up on this, like, okay, he's going to be 4 when this next baby, if we can conceive, right? If whatever, and I'm so heavy with that. I'm so heavy with that decision because no, it hasn't been a difficult road for me in that way, like others, like yourself. It hasn't been, and I have been blessed to be able to conceive. However, now I am faced with the same burden that a lot of moms come to when it's like, how do you know if one more is going to be too much for me and push my body mentally and physically, like you said, to where maybe your body was at your breaking point and you were like, okay, that's it. You know, what's... How do we answer that?
I mean, it's just such I have a beloved friend who's in the same boat with her third and deciding, if that's the move that they want to make. And it's been really a big conversation point for them and their family. And, I think that what I go to, and it's like the human mind has a harder time with this, but because of the way that Alex came into our life, because of my whole motherhood journey is my reminder of this. I think that we often try to hold things that are not ours to hold, and we don't ask for help outside of like ourselves and our fellow human kind. And I really believe that we are spiritually supported. And after Alex came into our life, I got the word held tattooed on my wrist right here. And my kids, I put my kids right here in little stars. But to remember that like every single thing that happened in the journey leading up to Alex being there had to happen in order for Alex to come in that divine timing. And if I had tried, and I did, but if I tried to like grab the wheel back and drive it myself and do all of these things, it's like you lose the connection to the miraculous nature of how life actually works. And, it's interesting, like you said this thing earlier about like the finite and the infinite. And it's like, I believe that we are infinite, that our spirits are infinite, that our, energy lives on. And that our impact is infinite. Like just because you exist, your impact will go on forever through time and space. Like you cannot ever remove the impact of Gina on this planet. And so I tend to look at life from that vantage point after the near-death experience, that there's really not so much to fear, because when we do get to that point, it's from what I experienced, it was absolutely beautiful, euphoric, blissful, incredible. It's like not something I'm afraid of at this point now. And what I realized is that what it reminded me of, or what it directed me back to when I was in that space between, was that heaven on earth is this ability to connect with each other, this opportunity to love our children, this gift of like our children having each other and knowing that they're going to have each other when we're no longer in the physical body, and they're going to have the memories and the little tiny things that are just theirs. And sometimes this is the other piece. It's like, my motherhood was incomplete, but my daughter was meant to be a big sister. And that it's so true and real now that I see that with her, that like how like they just are like this. And I think about like, if I had let my fear win, if I had let my pain win, if I had let all of those things take over, then all of this beautiful experience would not have gotten to happen. And so that's where I have that exhale and I go, can you just let yourself be held? Because the conception of your babies, while you guys like best laid plans and all of that jazz, like you actually are not in control. You're not actually in control of that. Like your children's souls are in control of that. Like there's something else that's in control of the synapse, of that spark when life begins in the physical form, when a heart decides it's going to beat. And so I think maybe you could just take some pressure off of yourself with having to control all these things that you don't actually have ultimate control over, and really sink into like the feelings you want to have as a family. And then like that in and of itself kind of lets you off some of the hooks there, to let the decision-making process be a little lighter. Yeah.
My poor husband, he is so planned, and he's a serial entrepreneur. So he's just like the numbers and the figures and the logic and the plans and the this and that. And then I get swept up in that with him. And I'm like, it is adorable. And I just get, that's bless his heart. Maybe that's what makes me so heavy. He's like, what are they going to be fighting wars? What are we bringing these kids into? And I'm just like, what? Where did we just go with that?
Oh yeah, I know.
Like AI is taking over. What are they going to, what kind of world, and I'm like,
our
oh my
God. Our parents could have said the same thing. Like our parents could have easily said the same thing about the world that was unknown to them that we now inhabit.
Yeah. It was, I'm like, I'm not even going to go there. I usually shut that down pretty quick when he starts spiraling off on that kind of thing. I'm like, nope, I'm not even thinking like that. Don't even go there. Well, it kind of that perfectly brings us into what I wanted to talk about with legacy and leaving a legacy. Like you said, that our energy is here and our impact is here, and we can't change that because we were here. And so now we've impacted the ripples, right? Forever in space and time, the ripple that I made is going to continue on, however big. And I think about that with women in my community, and I'm trying this kind of new thing, I believe, where I am speaking to stay-at-home moms. I feel so called to have a voice because I have one. I am loud and I make it known that I can speak for these women like my mother that maybe didn't feel like they could speak for themselves or dream for themselves or live bigger than what was shown to them, modeled to them before. And that's kind of the ceiling I'm trying to break. And I want you to help me explain how beautifully you explain idealization. And like, what is our legacy? Because when I think of like, when I feel like I sound so Disney when I say, ladies, what is your dream? What is your ideal life? What is your like dream life? And I think to myself, which is such a funny question, because to me, what that looks like, or even in a funny way, what is your dream life looks like, is not the definition of someone else's, but maybe because of society's commercialism, it is like the big house, the fancy car, the husband that works but can come home or whatever, that, it's like, and we go on vacations, and what's your ideal dream? And so I feel like we block ourselves with what we think an ideal dream should be, instead of really, really getting to the thing under the thing, the root of where it needs to come from inside of us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that this is a process, because there's a lot of wiring for many of us that, there was like a thing growing up for so many of us that like compliance was important for survival. And so I like to kind of go back to the root of like really understanding why a person is wired the way they are. I like to ask people the baseline question of like, whose love did you crave the most, and who did you have to be in order to get that love? And really understanding the wiring of their childhood, of their existence, of their motivations, and what their motivations were actually about. Are they toward or away values, right? There's this opportunity to really understand how someone is wired. And once we can get to that about ourselves, then we can compare and contrast. All right, I want to have XYZ. This feels like I want to, I'm right now in this moment, I'm really big into talking to people about the business model they want and what their dream number is. Like, what is your dream income number? And oftentimes, I will find myself, the next logical question is like, why? And I have a program called House of Plenty, and in it, I have this whole spreadsheet that helps people calculate their specific dream number and how it works, and then compare and contrast that to their actual existing numbers right now, and then showing them. And it's just wild, because most people will go through that exercise and think, I want to have $1 million year. I want to make XYZ. And then they do their dream number and they realize, I don't need $1 million. What's $1 million year for? What's the point of that? And yet the last 5 years, all they've been saying, I want to get that $1 million year. And then they've been feeling like a failure because they didn't get that figure to like put on Instagram and talk about. And I just say to them, this is such good news, because you just liberated yourself from the chains of someone else's model. God bless whoever that someone else is, and gave yourself permission to fully embrace yours and to fully embrace what your life is about and what you're doing. And, I can relate to that discomfort. I mean, there's a period of time when I was newer in this entrepreneurial space, and I was in a mastermind with all of these, like, everybody I was following on Instagram, all these like hotshot, amazing people, like superstars, brilliant, who have really big businesses. And that's their goal. They have these big numbers, and like big numbers in terms of like volume of followers and all this stuff. And I remember just thinking, like, I live in New Hampshire, and I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not really like into this. Like, I have a different model. And I remember one of my mentors saying to me, how do you achieve this financial outcome with like 3,500 people on your email list? And I was just like, I don't know. I just connect, I'm just like connecting, and it's like the model that I've built. This is the way the numbers work, and so my point in telling you this is just that it's to bring us back to the recognition that all of these things we see out there that we kind of use as weapons against ourselves often are pretty arbitrary. And what it really comes down to is getting to like, what feels satisfying to you? What feels fulfilling to you? And when you think about it, like the real litmus test for this is to think about like 10 years from now. What are you going to regret that you did not spend your time and your life force on? What are you going to miss that you can't get back, that you right now might be trading in for something else that you think is important? And if you can answer those questions, you're going to give yourself the jackpot, and you're going to be able to set yourself up to really live into your rich life.
How do you help them think outside of the box for something more than what's just been modeled to them, to even start to think about, what am I going to miss? You know what I mean? That's a funny question, because say you have, for example, I draw from my sweet mother all the time, but say you have been modeled. She was raised on a farm, 5 brothers and sisters. She basically helped raise them, because that's what you do when you're the oldest, and had to make her own clothes. They grew their own food. They lived a very simple life. So now for me, I have 7 brothers and sisters. I watched my mom grow a beautiful garden. She sewed all of our dresses for dances, and very simple, humble, beautiful life. But it was elevated from what her life was. My dad was a banker. Her dad was a farmer, right? So it's come up generationally in the sense of, I guess just worldly materialism, I guess, is a concept, but not in education. She didn't work. She didn't go to school. She had babies, right? And so for us, it wasn't modeled to be in business, be an entrepreneur, go to school, whatever. We had to all kind of take the next step if we did or didn't, whatever. So where does the information come from if you don't know where to begin other than what you're living?
Yeah. No, that's good.
Well, the reason I have someone in my heart that I'm thinking of, and when she first came into this community, she says, I want to be a good wife and a good mother. And I said, great.
It's beautiful.
That's amazing. We all want that. Mm-hmm. We all want that. But you as a woman, before you were a wife and a mother, like what was on your heart? Like we all grow up thinking, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a engineer. I want to be like whatever. Where did that go? So I kind of draw on that, but I would love to hear where you would draw on.
I mean, saying that you want to be a good wife and a good mother is going to have a different visual feedback system and a different definition than it will for anybody else.
For sure.
And so I believe people when they tell me what their dreams are, and I move with them in that space of what they have access to. And then I move with them in the revelations of what comes up. And it's so interesting because inevitably your sort of daily life and your pursuit of doing the thing you say you want to do is going to bring up frustration. And in the frustration or in that sort of like dissonance that's going to naturally come up in the human experience, that's where the clues are going to come up. Like that's where because it sounds like she can't access what that was before. And it might be because she just didn't experience it like that. But through the lens of her vision and her dream of being a great mother and a great wife, that's where the sparks are going to fly and where she's going to feel safe to access those little bits of like, I really want to create my own little business, like crocheting something, or I really want to like run for the school board, or I really want to like run a half marathon, or there's like something's going to come up in that container for her. I think that is going to be self-referenced in a way, and it's going to be more available than asking it in that way of like, what was it before? Because it might actually have been her dream, to be a mother and a wife, and she achieved it. And so now she's like in it. And this is the next, my best friend just said this to me yesterday, like, oh, we're standing on the ceiling of the old upper limit. And I love that so much to think about. Like we're standing on the ceiling of our old upper limit. And then that's my best friend, Rachel Camfield, who said that. And now it's like above that is like this whole new world to like find where that next ceiling is, that we're going to find our way to. So I love this for her. And I love what's available inside of it, because I truly believe a few things. One, if the dream is in you, it is for you. And I know that our dreams are our direction. They provide the direction for the learning, for the evolution, for the growth, for all of the things that we're supposed to get along the way to equip us to be able to move into that next threshold, that next sort of chapter of impact and joy that life is here to deliver to us.
That was so beautiful. And actually it happened. It did happen in that way. She, because she wanted to be an amazing wife and mother, she wanted to homeschool her kids, and she found joy in that and found passion in that. Well, now she is doing it with other people's kids. She's expanded into homeschooling with other people's kids. And I'm loving being part of that journey with her, but that is absolutely beautiful. And I'm stilling, if the dream is in you, it's for you. That is Thank you. Like, I feel so validated in saying that over and over and over again. Mine wasn't as pretty as that, but it's like,
People say it all the time. I have sweatshirts with it printed on it, so I can mail
good.
you one.
Okay. Yes. Well, but you're given these gifts. Like, you're given, like, I'm here because I'm here. Anybody with kids can appreciate that this one was made specifically for this job. Like, to make me crazy sometimes, but this one was made specifically to lead and be a helper. You know what I mean? That it's in us. So I love it. If it's not in you, it's not going to be your dream. So if it's not already a little, it's like a seed. It's like one of my friends said it like, imagine you're wanting to be this flower and you're constantly trying to be this beautiful peony, and you're like, I'm a peony. And then all of a sudden, like, you start having these twinges happening, and it's like this poor little cactus inside saying, but you're really a cactus. Like, let me out. Please let me be a beautiful cactus. You know, you're like, the seed is in you. You cannot be the peony. You're a cactus. Like, anyway, I loved that. I loved that.
That's so good.
Oh, so you actually, it's funny you quoted your friend on the standing on the limit of the old upper, because I actually wrote down a quote from you today, and it was overqualified for where you are and underqualified for where you're going. And that felt like the theme of the day for me. It was like the theme of the day. It's the theme of the day. Do we have another baby? It's the theme of the day. How does this affect my business? Where do I want to be in my life as far as my value as family? But I am coaching, and now this is a passion. And, you know, it's all about, like you said, it's just in it every day, trying to find that nice, mythical, we'll call it mythical, balance, alignment, flow, ebb and flow. So, okay. So can you please explain to me what Try Softer is?
It's my favorite thing. I mean, I'm certain you would agree with me on this, that probably 99% of your clients come to you feeling like they're doing it wrong, they did it wrong, they can't get it right, and they're being hard on themselves about that truth, right? It's like they think this, and then they're harder on themselves. And I think that's life. Like that's the world we live in. And I've noticed, you know, in my motherhood, that when my kids are having a hard time, and even when they're being super chaotic, being hard on them never, ever solves what's going on. It doesn't.
Yeah, adds to it. It's like fuel on the fire.
It just makes the flame bigger. And I had this vow with my daughter at a young age. It was like basically like this sort of human experiment, for lack of a better term, of like, I wonder what it is like to be a child who's raised in the world with parents who are exquisitely aware of her magic and her light and her capacity, and will do everything they can to protect that, like to protect her relationship with herself, to literally fight for it, like tooth and nail. And to center that as like the thesis as a mother, to like to protect my children's understanding of themselves and their relationship with themselves. Because as we all know, little kids, they don't think they're unworthy. They don't think that there's anything wrong with them. Right. They just think that they're great. They're so happy to be here. And then what happens? The adults who got that belief system, who nobody fought for, are inflicting it back on the kids, and oh, you got to be tougher for this world, and and I refute that. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. I don't think our model is right. And my proof is that all I need to do is just look at any average random adult walking down the street and ask them, how are you doing? I guarantee you the first thing will come, oh, you know, fine, hanging in there, surviving, right? Like, tell me I'm wrong, because you know I'm not. And I look at most people, and I look at their happiness quotient and the way they communicate, what their body language is, Most people aren't happy. They're not happy with themselves. They're not happy with their life. And I ask you why? Because they were raised by people who passed that baton down, who literally socialize them to think that's how you have to exist in the world. And I was raised that way too. And I just remember thinking as a young person, I just don't think it has to be this hard. I just don't think it has to be this bad. I'm literally seeing examples out in the world of other people, and they're unicorns, but because they exist, they've proven to me that it's possible to not live this way forever. And then I became a mother, and I had this child who's like happy all the time. Like, she wakes up and she's happy to see me. Like, why? Because she loves me and I love her. She doesn't know how much money I make. She doesn't know what pant size I wear. She doesn't know if I've written a book or not. She just knows how I make her feel by the way that I love her. Simple truth, and yet the most profound thing I'd ever discovered. And so I committed as a mom to remind her of the truth, that she's a gift, that she's a miracle, that she's, 4 billion years of unbroken lineage, that she's not a mistake, that she's supposed to be here. And for the last 10 years, that's been the message. And when we're in places and spaces where, it's not been a great environment. I mean, there's a reason why we homeschool our kid, because most people in the school system are pissed. They don't like their life. They're unhappy. They're underpaid, and they're a victim. And so this victim energy thing we talk about all the time in this house, and I remind my children, you are the creators of your reality. We are creators in this house. We are not victims. There are things that happen in life sometimes that are hard. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse as a young child. I am absolutely a victim by definition. But right. I choose to see myself as a survivor and as someone who's created the life that I'm living now. And I live that every day. And that is the spirit of my family. That's how we operate. And so, coming back around, the bend to what you were asking about, it's like that energy is the way that we do life. And that's the wave that we're riding. And that's where you get that lift. And that's where you get that radical personal responsibility and ownership to define how you want to exist. And no matter what the circumstances are, I just don't think we have to live in suffering. And part of the reason why I can say that, is obviously my own lived experiences, but I don't know if you've ever read the book, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Absolutely. We just read it in my community. I was just there. We were just there. So there you go.
So there you go. And that book is one of the most meaningful books I've ever read, because there was still joy even in the absolute worst possible circumstances that a human could ever have to endure. And so you take that and you go, all right, like, I'm alive. This is a gift. I'm breathing today. I'm in a body. Like, let's go. I get to be here. That is the gift.
Can I share this with you? It's going to take a hot minute to read this. I wrote this so I have these women in my community. They are my founders. They're the women who joined me when I very first opened in October. And so when my members hit their 1 year, they have a charm that's a peony. And this year my founders hit their mark and they got a diamond. Mm-hmm. And it was because of Viktor Frankl's book. He makes reference to a diamond. And I sent them this. It says, let me sparkle some light on the diamond reference. In the context of our energetic and empowering tone, the diamond serves as a brilliant analogy for the inner strength and resilience that lives within every woman. Just like a diamond, each of us possesses extraordinary qualities that makes us unique and precious. We may face pressure, challenges, and even moments of adversity, but it is in those times that our true beauty shines. Just as diamonds are formed under intense pressure, we too can transform and grow through life's trials. Moreover, diamonds are renowned for their brilliance and ability to reflect light. Similarly, as women, we have the power to radiate positivity, love, and inspiration in everything we do. We can illuminate the lives of those around us with our kindness, compassion, and unwavering spirit. So, dear sisters, when we say diamond in our uplifting language, it symbolizes the incredible strength and capacity for growth that resides within you. It represents your ability to overcome obstacles, embrace your unique qualities, and shine brightly as you pursue your passions and make a meaningful impact on the world. So let's remember that just like diamonds, we are strong, resilient, and capable of incredible transformations. Embrace your inner sparkle, and let's continue to empower one another on this beautiful journey called life. So beautiful. All of my founders have this diamond on their charm because of that book.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible to me that people can find that beauty, but yet people who are living in such blessed lives can't.
I know.
And that's shocking.
They forgot. They forgot. And then for some of us, life will shake you out of the tree and you will remember. And, you know, I think this is the biggest thing over and over again. And I really try to, have compassion there because I don't know. I just feel I'm so changed from that experience when my daughter was born. And with Try Softer, it's like in every way, I'm a former Division I athlete. I had an eating disorder for 15 years. Like if there's a person who was going to go hard, it was me. I mean, I'm a generator. I was, one of the top sport marketing professionals in the country. My capacity for doing things was insane. And I would push myself to all the limits. And that's part of like the body story that I've had to really struggle with throughout my life. It's like part of the reason why I struggled with infertility. It was like, I had amenorrhea when I was a teenager. I didn't even have a period. I trained so much. I worked so hard, and so, it's a renaissance, it's an evolution to be here at 42 and say, we're trying softer and we're trying softer with people. And I find that most of the time, someone who's like really being harsh, there's such a gift in being the one that softens and just says, are you okay? Or, oh, wow, that was really harsh. Like, do we have to do it like that? Like just really holding courageous space for a more compassionate approach to life. And when I look at trying softer as a mother, certainly not perfect. Definitely have my moments where I'm just like, but it's like our kids just want to be held. They just want to be known. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be seen. They want all the things that we wanted that maybe we weren't able to get. And I think there's just such redemption in this gift of this chapter of my life of being a mom and being able to give my children like the things that I didn't get. And then likewise, be able to have really nourishing, healing conversations with my mom and my dad about that respectively, about the journey and be a soft place to land for them now. And to say, for a long time, I really held you in bondage to that. I really blamed you. But what I realized is you were just trying to figure it out too, the same way I am now. Like you didn't know, you did the best you could. And I'm good, and I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have all those experiences and if I didn't have exactly you as my parent. And so I just thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's those broken roads.
Yeah.
That's, how do you look back on something and think, I wish that wouldn't have happened? Because even though they may have been horrific and terrible, did you come out of it? Are you stronger for it? Are you a better human for it? Are you, and I mean, that's a personal journey for each individual in themselves, but
right.
So where do you, I don't know if maybe you don't have this problem with where you are in your business and your coaching, the level you're at. Where do you fall with that? Try softer with people that don't take ownership, that refuse to have accountability of their life and their actions and want to, pretend to want to, but yet they aren't. And the try softer feels like coddling.
I just don't attract those people, honestly.
And that's what I wondered, if you're at that level where you don't have that.
Yeah, well, it's just like a vibrational thing, right? It's like it probably wouldn't be very fun and comfortable for them to hang out with me because I'm just going to be like, okay, and so my people
no space.
my people are ready to do this work in this way, and it's like insanely transformational. It's, and I will just say to them, like, look how far this like pushing, striving, going hard thing has gotten you. Like, if it was the answer, don't you think you'd be there by now? And so I just hold space for that, and it's like, all right, babe, you do you. I'm going to be in my orthopedic shoe car over here and living in my pond life, writing my poems, listening to James Taylor and making multiple six figures and loving my life. Like, you do you, babe. And when you want to chat about your model and what you want to create, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's dance. But I don't have to like, that's the really beautiful thing is I used to feel like in this business where, it's like the messaging is like push and you need to do more. And I'm over here like doing less and living more and just pouring, watering the garden and like planting the seeds that feel really meaningful and just knowing that I'm held even in my business and that the things that are most essential and important, the resources always come. But here's the thing that is really important, and I want to leave everybody with this. It's that, remember, the dream will always precede the resource. And so the dream's going to come and you're going to feel that echo chamber of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the money to invest. I don't know what to do with how, like freak out, hair on fire, right? And my response to that is, yay, this is so amazing. This is actually how it works. And so the dream is the direction. And now let's like put our hands in the soil and let's figure out what seeds we're planting and let's just enjoy the sun on our faces and then watch what's ready to grow next in your life. And it is really counterintuitive for a lot of the women that I serve because they're highly, highly ambitious and they've gotten to where they are going at one speed. And then they're crashing into the wall of motherhood and they're crashing into adrenal fatigue and they're crashing into perimenopause. And then they're realizing and like their own personal renaissance of like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And then it's like, all right, well, let's try it a different way. And that's where my work comes in.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. You do you, babe.
Yeah. Cheers.
Oh, that's how I've lived my whole life. You do you, babe. Everybody, it's like when people say, oh, I could never do that. Good for you, but I could never do that. It's like, I didn't ask. Thank you, though. Oh my gosh. You are too cool, lady. You had me crying. You had me laughing. Woo. Well, I think I have a place to go here, but I want to be respectful of your time and mindful of your time. But if you're ready, if you're up for one more question.
Yeah, let's do this and we'll wrap it.
We'll wrap it up.
I bet it's going to be a good one, Gina. I can feel it.
It's honestly, it's funny. It's one I never would have thought in a million years. And it was on a poll I put it in my Facebook group. I put it on my community. Yay. And it was like, if you could be coached or have a training in this topic, what would it be? And there was a list of these. And the one that everybody voted on, I let them pick a couple, but the one that got the highest is how to talk to anyone.
Wow.
Isn't that an interesting concept?
Amazing. Wow.
And one of my favorite books and one of the first ones we dove into in this community was How to Ask Great Questions, John Maxwell. Mm-hmm. And I think that one dives into it very well because really you can talk to anyone if you're just asking questions. But apparently that did not land as hard because now here we are. How do you talk to anyone? And I have my philosophies, but I'd love to hear your response on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's two things. It's care and curiosity. And one of the things that is like the ethos of everything that I do, and most especially in my business and with my team and with our community, deep care is at the heart of what we do. And my community will tell you, and they've said this, like they feel it. They feel how much we care. And every single thing, if you peel back every page and every layer in the way that the business is set up and the way that my programs are set up, is designed with deep care at the heart and in that relational piece. And so for me, it's like, I was just at a car dealership talking to a guy, and Brian, he just graduated from high school. It's his first job. His dad worked in a car dealership. So he's there. He's on salary. It was like, that's really interesting. Do you think you'd rather be? I mean, we were like jamming, like life talk, talking about the music that's playing and talking about, the different cars. I mean, we just had like the most amazing conversation. It was like my curiosity just led me to keep asking him different questions to learn more about him. And he was delighted to share because somebody actually cared and wanted to sit there and listen and like talk to him and be fully present and just know who Brian is as a person. And so it's amazing too, because then the manager comes over and you're talking to him and I'm like, hey, oh, well, Brian's new here. I'm like, Brian's amazing. We are having the best conversation. Like he's just building such, I'm a business person too. So I'm like, he's doing so great at sales. Like you got a star here. And I can say that candidly because I just connected to this guy who let himself be known. And so I think deep care and curiosity. And if you move through the world like that, and it's like, how do you show care? You make eye contact. You slow down. You probably try softer. And when you do that, it's like, that's where real vulnerability happens. And I'll tell you this, like, if we want to sprinkle in some business parts here, I, like you, interview people on the podcast that maybe I've never spoken to before. And, there've been people that I'm like, my gosh, I've read these people's books. Their book has like changed my life. Like, I'm like nervous. I'm going to have this like amazing person. And by the time we get to the end of the conversation, they're like, what can I do to support you? Like, this was an amazing conversation. No one's ever asked me that before. And the reason why they're saying that is because I showed up to the conversation with deep care. Like I prepare, I read their book. I find things in their books that move me in deep ways that probably no one's ever said to them. Like on page 235, you said this one sentence and I just couldn't even breathe. And they're like, what? Like, nobody says that to me. They're like just reading the summary and the highlights and they're just like, it's deep care and then curiosity. And I just think that if we can have that for each other, the world changes. Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop. That's beautiful. That's actually really wonderful. I love that. Thank you so much. And it's a perfect place to wrap up. Where can my listeners come find you? The best place for us to come support you and your journey.
That's so sweet. Yeah. I mean, come over to Instagram, you guys. I'm always putting up quotes and poetry and sometimes funny things. I love being weird on my stories. I'm at Amber Lilyestrum. And then on my website, amberlilyestrum.com, you can learn about my podcast. It's called Ignite Your Dream, and my programs, just all the things that are going on in my world. And you can see my books and, everything is over there. So I'd love to connect on Instagram. And I would love for you guys, I'm just going to say this for all of us, please share this episode. Please share it on your Instagram. Tag Gina, tag me, shout it out. Tell us what was the most helpful thing that you learned here today. Quote us. Gina said amazing things. Say out into the world, spread this out there because we do this podcast, right? I have a podcast too. Sometimes you're like, is anybody listening? It goes out into the void. And if you're hearing us talk right now, your shares mean the world, literally. It means the world to us. It's the whole reason why we do it. So please do that. And we will both shout and share you guys back out again.
Absolutely. You are phenomenal. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I have notes here that I never even got to. I mean, money mindset, how that actually it speaks to stay-at-home moms. It does. And it's not a business thing. I mean, I could have gone on and on.
We could do another one on that one.
Yeah, I was going to say that's conversation for another episode. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your beautiful story about your motherhood journey, because that just was really special for me. So thank you for that. And thanks for being here with us.
Appreciate you. Thank you.